FBI employees have sued Acting Attorney General James McHenry, accusing the Department of Justice of violating the Constitution and privacy laws by demanding that agents complete a survey allegedly designed to purge Bureau personnel who were involved in January 6th cases. CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez joins us now. Evan, what are you hearing about what is going on at FBI now that this deadline has come and gone?
Well, the deadline was noon. So as of an hour ago, our understanding was that the FBI leadership was going to comply with the demand for these names to be provided. And so this lawsuit really is about what happens next, which is that the agents are demanding that the Justice Department not publish their names because what we've seen before, Boris, is that the publication of the names of agents who are involved in any Trump-related cases results in harassment, in threats to their families. They get doxxed, and so that's one of the first things that is being addressed here in this lawsuit. Obviously, the larger question is whether these agents will be targeted for termination or demotion or any other kinds of punishment, right? That is partly what is at issue here. You remember, on Friday, the Justice Department was headed towards doing dozens of potential firings, and then suddenly everything seemed to come to a pause, right? And the reason for that is that Kash Patel, the nominee to run the FBI on Thursday, had testified, and he had said at his Senate hearing that agents would not be punished for the work that they did on cases that they were assigned, right? And so that is what really kind of made everything kind of come slow to a halt, and now there's this process that has been put in place. Now, Emile Beauvais, who's the acting Deputy Attorney General, says that there's going to be a review of the agents who worked on all these cases. We're talking about thousands of FBI agents and analysts who did anything related to January 6th.
Who didn't choose to work those cases. Those were cases that they were assigned.
Correct. They don't have a choice on which cases to work. And so that's part of the issue here. Agents say that they're being threatened with termination for simply doing their job. So we don't know yet what process is going to be in place. There's a couple of things to watch. Pamela Bondi is the incoming Attorney General. We expect that she's going to be confirmed as soon as tomorrow. And we'll see what path she takes on handling this review that has now been set up.
Yeah, something to watch closely there. Evan Perez, thank you so much. Brianna?
Let's talk about this now with former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Andy, do you think that this is going to work, this lawsuit?
Well, I think it tips the scales somewhat in the agent's favor, which is absolutely necessary. It has the advantages of taking this process, which seems designed for only one result, right? To put the department and bureau leadership in a position of purging these agents for doing the lawful work that they did. And it now introduces some degree of judicial review or oversight of that process. Some neutral third party, our courts, that can step in and say, what you're doing here is denying these agents their due process rights, and you are also putting them at risk by potentially violating their privacy rights under the Privacy Act if you release their names to the public. So I think it's a great move. I think it's necessary for them to stand up and defend themselves, and this is the proper way to do that at this point in the process.
And so when it comes to all of this, and this was before this lawsuit was filed, in a note to all employees on Friday, acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll said that leaders would follow FBI policy. I mean, what does FBI policy say? How are you reading what he's saying?
It's really interesting. He's getting a lot of credit for standing up on behalf of the agent population and defending them against this effort, but he is somewhat limited as well. In his case, if the Department of Justice simply comes in and says, hey, we want a list of agents who are doing particular work, it's hard for him to push back on that, because what they're asking for on its face is not obviously unlawful or unethical. Now, we all know what they intend to do with that information, which is why the agents who are the vulnerable players in this drama, they have to stand up and defend their rights in court as they're doing with this suit. But Driscoll's in a very tough spot. And let's remember that the more he pushes back against DOJ, the more likely it is we hear tomorrow that Driscoll is gone and has been removed from the FBI in the same way that they pushed out the leaders of the branches. So the EADs, executive assistant directors, very high-ranking people at headquarters, almost all of whom now have been forced to retire against their will.
Trump's pick for FBI Director Kash Patel promised under oath that rank-and-file FBI agents would not be retaliated against. What should we make of what he told Congress?
In my opinion, Brianna, very little. Kash Patel said so many things in the course of that hearing that were obviously and provably false that I think folks in the FBI would be ill-advised to take his word, to put any value in his word and his claims that he's going to stand with FBI agents against Donald Trump, the person who he has so many times pledged and indicated absolute slavish loyalty to. That is hard really to believe that once he gets in charge, if he gets the order to start, separating out people who were participants in the January 6 cases for retribution and punishment, reassignments, real career-ending sort of personnel actions, it is very hard for me to believe that Kash Patel is going to stand up for those people.
If there were not other things going on in Washington, what we're seeing happening at DOJ would be the top story. But there are just so many things that are happening. We're seeing this dismantling of the federal workforce. With some of these other stories stealing some of the oxygen, do you think that Americans understand what is at risk at the Department of Justice?
I really don't. I don't think they understand. And this is these two entities, the Department of Justice and the FBI, are institutions that have come in close and impactful contact with Americans every single day, hundreds, maybe thousands of times a day across the country. And what is happening here, first of all, it's horrendous what they're doing to this population of people who did nothing other than the work they were assigned, the lawful, appropriate, consistent with policy work they were assigned on the January 6 cases. But let's think for a minute of what this looks like after that group of people are fired. The agents who are left are confronting a situation that FBI agents haven't even imagined since in the post-Hoover era. And that is, what do I do when I'm asked to do something unlawful or unethical? But then am I putting myself in a position where I might be fired for angering the wrong politically connected person? That is not a calculation that's ever gone on in the FBI, and it will have been introduced by the fear of having watched the termination of their innocent colleagues. So this is an act that will destabilize and really shake the foundations of the FBI and its ability to protect Americans for generations.
All right, Andrew McCabe, thank you so much. We do appreciate your perspective.